AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Upgrade your laundry routine with a durable and reliable Maytag laundry pair at Lowe's. Like the new Maytag washer and dryer with performance-enhanced stain-fighting power, designed to cut through serious dirt and grime. And what's great is this laundry pair is in stock and ready for delivery when you need it the most. Don't miss out. Shop Maytag in-store or online today at Lowe's.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Campus Killings,
and
Killer Communications.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to support Missing Persons and get VIP access to things like ad-free listening, early preview episodes, and bonus content of not only this show, but for every other podcast on the AbJack network of indie podcast, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcast. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together, we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us. So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing.
Today we are discussing the mysterious missing persons case of Ian Benjamin Rogers. 39-year-old Ian disappeared on August 26, 2024. His mother, Teresa, who was very close with her son, describes him as funny, childlike, and kind. But Ian was also someone who struggled with self-esteem issues and drug addiction. Ian worked in construction and had just gotten a promotion to supervisor. The new position, which came with more money and supervisory responsibilities, was supposed to start on August 26th. Some of the details of Ian's last day are vague. Ian and his girlfriend Kaylee were living in a trailer home on the property of Kaylee's parents. That morning, August 26th, Ian drove Kaylee to work for her 5 a.m. shift. They reportedly had a disagreement. Ian returned to the house in his truck, but reportedly fell asleep in the cab of the truck for a couple of hours. He then showered and at 7:30 went to his mom Teresa's to pick up some tools that he had left there. He possibly had an altercation with his brother at this time. Ian left Teresa's house in Crawfordville, Florida at 9:32 a.m., supposedly to make the 45-ish minute drive to work in Killarn. Well, he never showed up. He also failed to text his girlfriend at 2:15 that day, which was a custom between them. Later that day, Ian's boss, Joe, showed up at Teresa's house looking for him because he hadn't shown up for work. Ian's mother reported him missing to the Wakulla County Sheriff's office that same day. They were able to give a very specific description of Ian's truck, a work vehicle owned by his employer recently assigned to Ian. It was a 2019 white four-door Dodge Ram 2500 with Florida license plate number RSKU57 and metal side steps. Police obtained surveillance footage from cameras around town and looked for Ian's vehicle but didn't see it. However, a license plate reader near Tom Brown Park in eastern Tallahassee, 20 miles north of Crawfordville, captured Ian's truck around 12:30 p.m. on the day Ian went missing. Surveillance footage, unfortunately, was too grainy to allow police to identify Ian as the driver. According to the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office, Ian passed the plate reader near the park and turned left on Appalachia Parkway, was out of sight down a road leading to a convenience store, and then came back to the traffic light, which captured him again. He was last seen driving away from the direction of Tom Brown Park. This was about 15 minutes from the job site he was expected to be at that day. Captain Brett Saras of the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office is the lead investigator on the case, and he tells WCTV the license plate reader's sighting of Ian's truck is the last evidence they have of Ian's whereabouts. No further sightings have turned up. Further, there's been no activity on Ian's bank accounts. Captain Saras says they have checked copious amounts of leads and looked into Ian's cell phone records. His phone reportedly just went to voicemail when called, and his phone number has now been assigned to someone else. The last ping on his phone was in the afternoon of the 26th in an area known for hunting. A white truck was possibly captured on footage at this location, but it's not at all certain that the image captured was Ian's vehicle. A local search group called Depths of History searched 255-acre Tom Brown Park. The searchers used metal detectors, drones, and underwater sonar, searching ponds, a small lake, a sinkhole, roadways, woods, and even a parcel of private property abutting the park that the owner allowed them to search. They found nothing. But again, there is no evidence that Ian was ever actually in the park. His truck was just seen near the park. Another private dive group searched Lake Talquin to no avail. His mother, Teresa, says Ian had no reason to disappear and everything to stay for. His job was going very well, and his son Aiden's birthday was the next day. They were looking forward to celebrating together. Ian was a devoted father, and missing his son's birthday is out of the question. Now he has missed 2 of his son's birthdays and the unexpected death of his brother Daniel. Ian's family is very concerned and worried about where Ian could be and cannot understand how both he and his truck could vanish into thin air. Ian had left for short stretches of time in the past, but always returned. Ian was last seen wearing a blue long-sleeve dry-fit shirt, white undershirt, tan cargo shorts, brown work boots, sunglasses, and a black hat. FDLE missing persons alerts specify that if you find him, do not approach him. Contact law enforcement immediately. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Ian Rogers, please contact the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office at 850-745-7100. Their Persons Crimes Unit is investigating. Mike Morford sat down for a detailed talk about this case with Alyssa and Mike McFarland, hosts of the Tragedy podcast, which has covered Ian's case extensively. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a reminder that your digital life is always at risk. Every day, hackers steal identities, drain bank accounts, and open fraudulent accounts. LifeLock is here with tips to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication on your accounts, report scams, and update the software on your devices. And for peace of mind, get LifeLock. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, LifeLock plans include the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you to your plan's limits if you lose money due to identity theft. Stay smart, stay safe, and stay protected. Get comprehensive identity protection with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. That's LifeLock.com, promo code NEWS for 30 days free. Terms apply.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Caulipower's got your back. Caulipower makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing, nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Caulipower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcaulipower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
In every town, there are stories that never make the headlines.
Stories of families still searching for answers and communities still waiting for justice.
I'm Elisa.
And I'm Michael.
Together we host Tragedy, a true crime podcast, where we share the untold stories of victims through the voices of friends, family, and those whose lives were forever changed.
We explore unsolved cases, cold files, and overlooked tragedies, moments that changed everything.
Beyond the headlines, we focus on the people left behind and the questions that still demand answers.
If you believe the past still has something to say, join us.
Listen to Tragedy, a true crime podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Visit www.tragedyaTrueCrimePodcast.com or connect with us on Facebook at Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast, on X at Tragedy Podcast, or email tragedyaTrueCrimePodcast@gmail.com.
Because behind every tragedy, there's a story that still needs to be told.
I want to welcome Alyssa and Michael McFarland to the show. They're the host of the podcast Tragedy, and they've extensively covered the case of Ian Rogers. So with that, thank you both for reaching out to us about Ian's case in the first place and for coming on the show to discuss it in detail.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on board, and it's always good to have someone that's knowledgeable about the case and can provide a lot of details. And before we dive into the details surrounding Ian's disappearance, can you talk about a little bit about your podcast and how it came to be that you covered his case?
Yes, I am a big true crime person, and we travel quite extensively. And instead of listening to music, we choose to listen to podcasts. And of course, they're almost always true crime podcasts. And Michael said to me one day as we were driving, he said, we have an unsolved homicide in his family. I did not know that. And he said, why don't we start a podcast? And we'll start with the unsolved homicide of Jody Kilgore, which is his uncle. And that's how we came to the podcast. And that happened in Wakulla County, which is a small, mostly rural county just south of Tallahassee. And during the course of the creation we do more long form podcasts. So we'll do maybe 5, 6, 7 episodes per story.
That's right.
Someone reached out to us from Wakulla County via Messenger. And she said, there's also a missing person out of Wakulla County. And I know his mom. Would you be interested in speaking to her and possibly telling his story and the story of the family that's been impacted by his disappearance? And we said, of course. And that's how we came to the disappearance of Ian Rogers out of the same county.
Okay. So this is, I think it proves the effectiveness of listeners, because here they are listening to your episode about something personal in your family. And then, they have another case they bring to your attention out of the same area.
Yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We'll get into some of the things you did on your show and some of the aspects you looked into, some of the people you talked to, that kind of stuff. I know you interviewed family members, experts, things like that. How many total episodes did you do on Ian?
I want to say it's 9, because we actually we continued having people come to us and want to share, which is exactly what we want to do. And then I think we had a couple of episodes on something else, and some things happened with Ian's case, so we went back to it, which we've done before. So I'm pretty sure it's 9. With this one, we also did something very interesting with a listener roundtable where we invited some of our passionate listeners to join us for not really a Q&A, but a discussion about what could have potentially happened to Ian. And then from that, our listeners came up with some really great ideas, which then caused us to come up with another episode.
Yeah, and then what ended up happening was, what was unique in this case, at least for us, was every single person involved in the case, or almost every single person, we had direct access to. So we were able to take those questions, ask, and go back to the source and answer those questions, and then provide another update later. So that led to, I think, episode 9.
I feel like it's 9.
The 9th episode of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that roundtable that you're talking about is very cool. And I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later. But I think anytime you get input from multiple people with different backgrounds and different aspects, different, histories and different knowledges of different areas, you'll get some really good feedback and some really good ideas when you can, sort of crowd solve a case like that. So I'm going to ask you a little bit later on about some of the things that you found. And usually on this show, we have a family member here or an investigator to discuss the person that's missing. And this is the first time we're having on host of a podcast to talk about the person. I know neither of you knew Ian personally, but you learned a lot about him from the work you did. Based on your findings and hearing from people that were close to him, can you tell us a little bit about Ian and his life?
Yeah, I mean, Ian, he's from a small town. He's, basically it's from the Crawfordville area. He worked to putting on siding at a company in Tallahassee, and he was just eking out his small life and enjoying that. And he had a son, and then he made some mistakes. He got a little bit involved in drugs and probably hanging out, quite a few of the wrong people. And I know he was struggling financially, but then there was kind of a yin and yang with what was going on. Is he was struggling financially, but then he also got a promotion. He was having trouble with transportation. Well, his boss solved that problem. And so we had some good things and some bad things happening in Ian's life at the point of his disappearance.
And most people that we speak to, his mom, his girlfriend, his best friend, would describe him as the happiest, most upbeat, life of the party.
Yeah.
He was a drummer, so he was really active in the music scene, and everyone says overwhelmingly positive things about him. And so it just seems very unusual what happened.
Yeah, and it's great to get those details from people that know someone and can give you those firsthand accounts and help you get to know somebody that you don't know directly. So I think that's the value of podcast. So let's dive into the details of the case. Ian vanished along with his truck on August 26, 2024. From what I've read and from what you seem to have presented, it seemed like it was a normal day that day, other than maybe a fight that Ian had with his girlfriend. Other than that, do we know anything about that fight in particular and the rest of the day? What kind of mood he was in after he left there? What kind of, was it in good spirits still?
That's a hard question to answer because there's with that particular day, there's definitely some periods of time that are missing from what we could prove. The argument that he had with his girlfriend, we've heard everything from a minor argument all the way up to a major argument. So, and the content of that argument, we're not 100% or certainly can't prove. And there were certain aspects about the day that seemed very typical and very normal. And there are certain aspects of the day that were very mysterious. Like after he dropped his girlfriend off at work, he went and back to her house and sat in the driveway for potentially up to 2 hours. And we don't really know what he did there. Some people thought he went to sleep. Some people thought he may have taken some drugs. Some people thought maybe he wasn't actually in the driveway because that's actually an unsubstantiated comment that was made. We have sightings of him going to his mom's house where he dropped off some tools and he was picking those tools back up. We have potentially a conflict with his brother over what was being picked up. We've been told everything from an argument about something as simple as cigarettes all the way up to potentially wanting to maybe take things that were not his, potentially to support this drug habit. And then we have sightings of him going to work, supposedly going to work, because that's what he was supposed to be doing this day. We have phone calls that happened with his boss. We have texts that were to the site manager, all indicating that his intent was to go to work, and he was talking about being late. But then on the flip side, we also have potentially him having problems with the truck, which no one believes, by the way. We all believe that's false because the truck was so new. But we're in a situation where we still understand kind of where he was in the day in comparison to where he was supposed to be. And you start to see this slow deviation with these large blocks of time that are unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
So before I move on from his girlfriend, I'm curious, did he live with his girlfriend?
Yeah, so they had a trailer in the backyard of her parents' house. Well, she has a trailer, and that's where he was living at the time, was in the backyard of her parents. So when he goes back to the driveway, and that's where he is for a couple of hours, that's very early in the morning. She, at the time, worked at a place that required her to be dropped off at 5 a.m., and this truck that he had received was their main form of transportation. So he's dropped her off at 5 o'clock, and he's not due at the work site until 8 a.m. So he's still on track at that point. You know, I probably would have fallen asleep too. 5 a.m. is early. And it's not until then he's going to his mom's house where he's potentially picking up tools that he begins to deviate from being on time, because he's at her house, from what we can tell, for almost 2 hours and doesn't leave her property until 9:30, which puts him an hour and a half late to work, plus the 45 minutes that it would take to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one that kind of stands out. I'm curious, was this a potential witness that said he was parked there for 2 hours?
Yes. It is the girlfriend's father who owns and lives in the house that's on the property. That's his report. That's why it's unsubstantiated.
And did he say that he saw him specifically sitting in the truck, or that he just saw his truck there for 2 hours?
Yes, that he saw him in the truck and that he walked out, knocked on the window, and told him to wake up and go take a shower. This is according to what the girlfriend tells us her father did.
Okay. So if that's accurate, if that's true, then we at least know that it was Ian in the truck there at that location. But it's, it seems weird. Why would he sit in the truck? I mean, sure, at that time in the morning, anybody could fall asleep, but you think he could just walk right in the house and go back to sleep for an hour before he got ready for work or something. Why would he stay there in his truck? So that's an interesting question. Again, I think from what you were saying, this is all secondhand information. So has his girlfriend been cooperative in the investigation?
Yes. She was the second person that we spoke with, and she immediately went to the sheriff's office, told them everything that she knew. And in a sense, she's a little bit frustrated. I think she feels like the sheriff's office should have at least come to the property and maybe looked around, because that is the last place he was known to be living before he went missing. And according to her, they haven't done that. But she has been, 100% cooperative with us.
Yeah.
Anytime I message her, she messaged me right back, and came on the podcast, and then also in speaking with law enforcement.
I'm curious, what was her take on his attitude that morning, other than the fight, obviously, they got into, but what was her interpretation or her feelings about him when she last saw him?
When we spoke to her about that, this was very early on in our learning of the story. I believe her words were, "We didn't leave on good terms."
Right.
I think that's
best of terms.
We didn't leave on the best of terms. That is what she said. But then she went on to tell us that, he would always text her at 2:15. She got off work at 2 daily. So he would always text her at 2:15 just to check in, make sure she got home okay. And she was very much expecting that text message to come. This wasn't like an ending relationship type of event. I think it was just It's early in the morning. I know I'm not great early in the morning. Michael will attest.
That's correct.
So I don't know that it was, it's interesting. As you mentioned, we have other people who are saying it was a much bigger, more dramatic interaction. But she was there. And so we have to sort of take what she says as the moment of truth.
Sure. Now, so after this, he leaves that house, goes to his mother's, or is that confirmed that he went to his mother's?
It is.
Yeah.
Sometime after 9? Okay. So he goes there, and from there, he's going to go to work. How far away and in what town was his job compared to his mom's house?
It was in Tallahassee, and that's north of Crawfordville. And we mapped this out, and from his mom's house to the job site, we're looking at 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how kind traffic was to him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so did Ian show up to work that day?
So he got to his mom's house at around 7:30. We know that because she saw him. So it was almost like she was leaving for work as he was pulling in. So she sees him, and then he is at that home for almost 2 hours. And at the time, his brother was living in that home. And so we know that he was there because his brother reported him as being there. And then we also have a picture of the truck with Ian in it that was taken, I want to say like 9:32.
Yeah.
And that's when he is loaded up and leaving. So at this point, he's, over an hour and a half away and 30 to 45 minutes. We drive this frequently from Crawfordville to Tallahassee, and it can be 30 minutes, but it can also be an hour. And the place he was going was actually northeast of towns, and this Crawfordville is south. So not only is he needed to go to Tallahassee, he's needed to go beyond up into a northeast neighborhood known as Killarn.
And so did he work off site, or did he work out of a specific location of his company?
That's a good question. He was typically at job sites. And so the job sites could change, obviously, depending on where they're putting in siding and windows. That's what Spartan did as far as the actual organization. They were siding and windows. And if you listen to Joe's episode, he talks about that in detail, about what they do. He says they specialize. This is what they do every day. And the job site just happened to be in Killarn on this particular day.
So at what point that day did it become clear to someone that Ian was missing, and who was the person that first said something's wrong here and, Ian needs to be reported missing?
That's a great question. Do you know this one specifically?
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of indications, but when he was actually reported missing, I don't know if I know that.
So what led to him being reported missing, and to answer your question about who, I guess we could say, sounded the first alarm, that would have been Joe. Joe is the owner of the business that Ian was working for. And Joe and Ian, they had known each other. One thing about this small town is people don't usually leave, and people have long-term existing relationships. So Joe, his boss, and Ian knew each other very well and had known each other for 30 years. And when Ian did not make it to the job site at all that day, what Joe did is he looked up into the records, his business records, of the address on file where, Ian had recorded for, HR purposes. And he went to that address, and that address happened to be his mom's house. And so Joe knocked on the door, and Teresa, Ian's mom, answered the door, and Joe says, "Hey, have you seen Ian? He didn't make it to work today." So that is the first indication where we have two people who are going, he didn't end up where he was supposed to be. I do not know, to your point, what time frame it was between when Teresa got that information and when she reported it to the sheriff's office, but I feel like it was the same day.
It was the same day. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out timeline, because there's a couple of prior indicators of a problem. And we have the indicator of Kaylee's 215
Not getting her check.
That was, according to her, that was never missed.
Yep.
And so she knew there was a problem starting at 2:15, and she tried multiple times to get a hold of him, and his phone was just continuing to go to voicemail.
Yeah.
So it was her and Joe both knew something was missing.
Right.
Did Joe try and call before he went driving over to look for him?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
And it's because he lives in Crawfordville, actually not that far away from Teresa's house. So he was he's going home. So he's just going to go home, stop at this address. He expects that Ian's there because that's the address he has on file. And maybe he just isn't feeling well and stayed home. But then it's not Ian's house, it's Teresa's house. And then this is where we start to recognize that something has gone wrong.
Okay. And then who actually reported him missing?
Teresa did.
Teresa did, yep. And that's why this case sits with the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office, because Crawfordville is in Wakulla County.
Okay. That's good to know.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a reminder that your digital life is always at risk. Every day, hackers steal identities, drain bank accounts, and open fraudulent accounts. LifeLock is here with tips to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication on your accounts, report scams, and update the software on your devices. And for peace of mind, get LifeLock. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, LifeLock plans include the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you to your plan's limits if you lose money due to identity theft. Stay smart, stay safe, and stay protected. Get comprehensive identity protection with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. That's LifeLock.com, promo code NEWS for 30 days free. Terms apply.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Power's got your back. Power makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing, nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Power's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
So it's not just Ian who's missing. His truck is gone. This is a big white Ram 2500. It's a common truck. You see a lot of construction type people with them, but it's not a little compact car. This is a big truck. So I'm curious, once they started looking for him, were there any sightings of that truck by witnesses?
As far as when they started looking for him, no. Now, the only thing that we have is there's two indications, one of which is in my opinion, a little bit, I would say, depends on your perception of the picture. But we have another one that's coming, it's coming out of Tom Brown Park, where we can see the truck, we can see the ladders in the truck, we can even see the tag and confirm it's the truck. What we can't confirm from that picture is if Ian's driving. It's not clear enough to determine that.
And that's at like 12:30.
Correct. There's another picture that is off in the forest, a little bit further southeast. Southeast. And that picture, it's really more of a square white thing. It's really difficult to tell if that's the truck. I don't think there's enough resolution there to really say that it is. It's been presumed that it is because it doesn't exist very far from where the last ping from his cell phone was recovered. Phone was not recovered. We're talking about the ping from the cell phone, the records. So it's presumed, but those are the only two truck sightings we've seen.
So this Tom Brown Park, I remember you talking about it on the on your podcast. It's not probably the nicest area. Can you tell our listeners a bit about this area, what it's like, how big it is, and what kind of stuff, goes on there?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brown Park's a really, if you're familiar with Tallahassee, you're pretty familiar with Tom Brown Park. Tom Brown Park is, depending on it, the nicety of it, if you want to use that term, depends on why you're there. There's lots of great things to do in the park. There's lots of trail riding. There's a BMX bike course there. It's a great park for families to hang out. It's very nice from that perspective. But Tom Brown Park does have a little bit of a dark side. It's been known for being a kind of a criminal act, have a lot of criminal activity associated with narcotics and various other types of drugs. There's reports of a homeless camp that's been in Tom Brown Park off and on throughout the years, and so it's definitely a place to look at if you're looking at drug activity.
And how big an area as far as acres do you know that offhand, and what kind of terrain is there?
It's pretty hilly. It's kind of pretty traditional of Tallahassee. Well, Tallahassee's known for clay hills. Nothing huge, but it's not flat. And I'm not sure how it's one of those things I would call it. I'm not sure if I know the acreage off the top of my head. It's not a giant park, but it's not small either. You could walk across it pretty easily.
Isn't there a lake?
There's a lake on it. I would call it a pond. I mean, calling it a lake is probably a bit aggressive.
From Colorado, I would call it a lake.
Yeah.
Florida.
Colorado standards, a lake. In Florida, it's a pond. But it's not very deep. That was actually one of the places that we've heard a lot of people talk about. Has anyone checked if his truck is in that pond? Well, the problem with that pond is the accessibility to drive a vehicle in it is problem number one. Problem number two is the depth. We've talked to a number of people that do water recoveries for vehicles, and we've talked about the size of the truck. And they've indicated that you would need an absolute minimum of 8 feet of water to adequately cover a truck of this size to hide it. And the problem with the pond in Tom Brown Park is it's a gradual depth, which means it doesn't just drop off. It's pretty mucky on the bottom. It would be very difficult to drive that truck into an area deep enough to cover it. And most of that lake is less than 8 feet.
Okay, that's good to know. And so this sighting is important, the surveillance footage. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's confirmed to be his truck heading into this area, but there's no evidence of it coming out. Is that correct?
It's the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
It's confirmed that it's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
No, not confirmed going in, but obviously it had to go in. So I think it's easy to make that statement.
Okay.
You just don't have to come into it from the same direction. And to be fair, if you listen to the podcast, we got that backwards too, because it was originally reported to us the other way as well.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until we were able to get our hands on a bit more evidence to find out that it was leaving versus coming into the park.
Okay, that's good to know. And the park itself, how far away is it from where Ian was supposed to be that day at the job site?
I would say conservatively 15 minutes.
Was it someplace he was ever known to be before? Did he ever go there for anything that you've confirmed?
Not that we've confirmed, but again, if you're from this area, you've been to Tom Brown Park. The frequency of going to Tom Brown Park is something that we don't know because it's such a common place for people to go. It's a traditional, I wouldn't say small city park, but large city park. And there's just lots to do there. And so if you're from Tallahassee, you're going to that park.
Okay. And so I want to ask you too, regarding the truck, and again, you mentioned you can't really see who's driving it. You just know that the truck was there. But according to reports, Ian or whoever was driving his truck passed a plate reader near the park and turned left on Appalachia Parkway and was out of sight for 8 minutes and came back to the traffic light, which captured him again. I'm curious, what's down that roadway, and was he gone? We've also read that it was a longer period of time, maybe 16 minutes. Was his plate itself captured? I'm curious about this plate reader situation.
So these are really great questions, by the way. And this is something that we've learned since we were first sharing, I call it the truck spot picture. And this information was provided by the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office to Teresa. I think in part because of us elevating this case and getting it back out to the public. And Teresa felt comfortable enough to go to the sheriff's office and say, can you please tell me what's going on? Because she reports to us that pretty much before we began elevating and retelling the story, they weren't sharing any information with her. And so what was told to her is it's 8 minutes out, 8 minutes back. And then there's another spot that we don't have a picture of. It's just that first one. And they gave her the direction that he was headed. And if you plot it 8 minutes out, there is a Dollar General, and across from the Dollar General, there is like some sort of convenience store, mini mart kind of thing. So we can pretty much speculate sort of what he was doing that morning. There's a pretty strong suspicion that he's moving around the area looking to purchase some drugs. This is another place where that happens. And then he comes back. And so there are these additional movements that we have learned from Teresa that indicate that's kind of what he's doing. And so that accounts for the 8 minutes and the 8 minutes back. He goes 8 minutes, goes to this convenience store, and then heads back to Tom Brown Park area, which is not the direction he's supposed to be going.
Okay. So then after this, the truck itself, after all the surveillance and these, plate readers and everything, the truck along with Ian is sort of nowhere to be found. And I think you mentioned earlier, but just no possible sightings of him that were reported that you know of?
Not that
we're aware of. And so to me, that seems really suspicious. But at the same time, you even mentioned yourself earlier, this is a white contractor's truck that, how many of these do you pass every single day and make no real mental note of? And so it's pretty common vehicle out there. It's the Doge Ram is the typical contractor truck that every contractor buys because they're inexpensive for what they are. And would you notice if you drove by it? Would it even register? And so that's kind of one of the challenges to having such a nondescript truck. So yeah, there's been no spottings that we're aware of, and that's one of the reasons for all the water searches. Because when someone or a vehicle goes missing in Florida, because of the volume of water in Florida, people instantly start thinking it's in the water.
Yeah, it's interesting point. And you're talking about how common it is that people might not, even it might not register that they saw the truck. But I could almost see it the opposite, where you're getting so many calls about white trucks that half of them are just other contractors out there doing some kind of work. So it's kind of odd that no one came forward saying they saw a white truck from that perspective.
Well, to be fair, they might have. Remember, this case is something that, because it's active, law enforcement they're not exactly sharing a lot of information.
No.
So there could have been dozens of calls about white trucks and just none of them his, but we can't confirm that because law enforcement hasn't shared that information.
Right.
Okay. So I'm curious too, were there any organized searches done of that area, using personnel, dogs, drones, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. When you talk about organized, I think that's what you have to define. We're not aware of any mass searches done by law enforcement at all. And I'm pretty sure, even though they're not talking to us, the family would know that. And they have indicated that law enforcement did no mass searches. Now, the family did get together and they kind of split up and checked various areas and properties that they knew Ian to frequent, mainly associated with property they own or places he hung out with, or hung out at, and they didn't find anything notable at all. And then there was also an organization called Depths of History, and they, his name is Britton, and he actually did something pretty amazing. He started out with, his company back when he was 13, just using, metal detectors. And now he's escalated to aerial drone searches, and he's created this water drone that uses sonar. And he went out there and searched some of the areas where the phone supposedly last pinged. There's a whole story along with that, with him accidentally getting on private property would end up being pretty funny. But the point is he didn't find anything either at those locations, and it was pretty extensively searched. And then on top of that, it's Sunshine State Sonar they mapped out all the different areas that Ian was and or was supposed to be, and they went through and evaluated all the different water locations that were deep enough, like that 8 feet that I mentioned earlier, and any place that had reasonable accessible water, and they dove all of these places, or they did sonar at these places. And then there was another group.
Yeah, so Ian's girlfriend at the time I had mentioned, she was working at Rockies, which is this is where you stop and get your bait and all that when you're going to the beach. And so everybody knows where it is. Everybody stops through. And there was a guy who would come in and get his coffee and stuff. And he was wearing a branded shirt, North Florida Diving. And she just started talking to him. And she was telling him what was going on with Ian. And he started searching as well he did like Talquin, I think.
He did a lot.
Yeah.
The Talquin was probably the biggest jump. And what he did, I thought was also pretty amazing. Talquin's it's one of the largest lakes in the Tallahassee area. So it's a lot of water to cover. He kind of gridded it out to identify where it was possible, like boat ramps, obviously, but then other places that it was even reasonable to get a vehicle near the water. He went out there with his boat and sonared all of these areas. I can't imagine how much time that must have taken, but he covered what he considered every accessible area via car, as well as every boat ramp that had access to get a car to the water. And of course, he found nothing.
So I guess the answer to organized searches is yes, just not to our knowledge, initiated by law enforcement.
Okay. And then you hit the nail right on the head. Here in Florida, when somebody's missing with a vehicle, the first thing I automatically go to is they drove into the water someplace. Right. And it's amazing how many people are found 20, 30, 40 years after they're gone missing. There's a drought or something, and all of a sudden there's a car that's, sticking out of the water, and mysteries are solved. But it's good to know that they so thoroughly searched those different water areas. And so it doesn't always mean a truck's in the water. I mean, other options are perhaps it was stolen, chopped up, that kind of thing, which would lead to, perhaps a more nefarious outcome. But as far as there's nothing to lead to that being the case. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. And there's one thing about this case too that stands out to me. And, we've had so many conversations with these different dive teams that one of the things Shelley mentioned was maybe it was Mike actually, but it was in that interview. Most of the cases where they have a car in the water and no one saw it happened at night.
That's right.
Well, in this situation, this is broad daylight.
Yep.
And so if you consider that variable and just look at the statistics of what they're talking about, that makes it less likely that he's in the water, because it would have been more likely someone saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because at night, I'm picturing my own neighborhood. There's so many canals. I live on a canal. Right. And at night, it seems like it would be much easier to drive into water than daytime. So that's a very good point. Now, obviously, an accident or something could happen where somebody swerves for something and hits the water, but no evidence to indicate that. I want to go back to something, and I think I remember you talking about this. Is it accurate that you guys tried to call his cell phone to see what happened?
We did not.
Okay.
I spoke with his mom a little bit about the cell phone, and someone actually already owns that number. I think I know what you're referring to. Someone owns that number now, and Teresa, his mom, she kept calling that number to, obviously it's his mom, so she's hoping that he picks up, and some woman picked up. And that's when she learned that his cell phone number had been acquired by someone else.
Now, to me, that's interesting, because you would think the police would close it off, lock it so it couldn't be, so they could keep that open as some potential line of inquiry. Any reason that of why they would?
That is a very interesting thought.
That is a very good question. I hadn't even thought about it until you started to say it. And then I was like, I don't know why they didn't do that, but there's a couple of things that we're not sure why they didn't do it.
Uh-huh. We do know that they have phone records. We do know that there was a delay, about a 3-month delay in getting those records. According to Teresa, the request for the records was inaccurate or inaccurately filed. And so they were not able to get, they didn't get the phone records probably in a more timely manner. And the phone records are something we have asked for in our FOIA and specifically, and we have been told that, well, we wouldn't really understand them. So they're not going to give them to us.
Florida is a pretty friendly state for getting FOIA requests. But if they're not willing to give you that in this case, that's an issue. I am curious though, you mentioned earlier about pings. Where was the area where the last known ping for his phone was at?
Yeah, the area that we know of is the area around Tram Road and Old Plank Road. And we've already mapped that out. It's a strange place to be. Ideally, if there's always this variation, right? Some people think phone pings are very, very accurate. Well, they're not. They're a generalized area. And so it kind of overlaps this area of private property, but also overlaps this area, if you believe the 1.5 mile accuracy level of the St. Marks River, that's a little bit to the southeast of that particular spot. And so that's the last known location. And that's a strange spot to go. I mean, one of the things, that we did talk about is, Ian talked about being part of a hunting club. And this is associated with hunting areas. So there was maybe he went out there, but then after more digging, we found out that he was never part of any hunting club. No one knows what that's about. So we believe that that's something that he told people whenever he wanted to kind of go off and be alone.
And the ping is 2:45, 3:15.
That's right.
Yeah, it's later in the afternoon.
And this is after the time that he should have called his girlfriend normally.
Yes.
Correct.
Now, unfortunately, when someone goes missing, investigation begins, it seems like their lives are sort of uncovered and exposed, and it's not always good stuff. You mentioned that Ian struggled with drug use. And I think it might be easy for some people to conclude that, hey, he just went someplace, overdosed, and there's no real mystery. But even if that's the case, where's his body? Where's his truck? Have you been asked that question a lot, or that theory thrown to you that he just overdosed and that's all there is to it?
Yeah, that is one of our theories. But just like you've already mentioned, and we've said this probably more than times that I can count in the podcast, we still get stuck with, where's the truck? At this point, it's much easier to hide a body at this point, or for him to have gone off in the woods and just, they haven't been found yet. But there's a couple of problems with the theories. Number one, where's the truck? Number two, if you believe this whole went out in the woods area for the last phone ping and that let's say he overdosed out there, you still can't get past the fact that we've been through a hunting season now. And this area is pretty heavily hunted. And so I just feel like a hunter would have stumbled upon this at this point, especially this area. And so, but yeah, and back to what you kind of said is, yeah, Ian's made some mistakes. I think we all have made some mistakes. And what we're trying to portray to people is, I'm not that concerned about the mistakes, because this is still a human being, has a family that cares about him, has a son that he's missing. And so I don't really care what put him there. What I care is, how do we get him home?
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely a good point. And, no matter what his situation, I'm sure his mom is worried sick, about what happened to him. And along those lines, his state of mind, his mental history, had he ever, shown any signs of self-harm at all?
If you consider drug use self-harm, yeah. There's been a couple times where it was reported that he did OD. Whether, I don't know if we can confirm whether that was intentional or accidental at this point. I believe it was accidental based on the conversations that we've had. But we do have an interesting, there was some interesting conversations we had with various people that talked about state of mind. And it was well, to me, it was unique because I've never been in this state of mind. So I guess that's why it was so interesting to kind of talk through with at least with me. But it was mainly about a lot of good things were starting to happen to Ian. And that this person that we talked to was actually during our roundtable said, what about the guilt associated with feeling like they are not deserving of this newfound positivity? And what would that do to someone who felt like they didn't deserve it or earn it? And could that be part of where his frame of mind was? And that he was reported saying something to this. Who did he say that to, babe?
I can't, maybe his son's mother?
It could have been his son's mother or Dan.
Yeah, his best friend.
There was definitely, I forgot exactly who gave it to us because it wasn't on the record. So I'm not going to go into exactly what they said, but it was to the extent of that Ian may not have felt like he deserved this newfound positivity that was coming his way. Promotion, the truck.
Yeah.
That he didn't feel worthy.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a reminder that your digital life is always at risk. Every day, hackers steal identities, drain bank accounts, and open fraudulent accounts. LifeLock is here with tips to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication on your accounts, report scams, and update the software on your devices. And for peace of mind, get LifeLock. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, LifeLock plans include the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you to your plan's limits if you lose money due to identity theft. Stay smart, stay safe, and stay protected. Get comprehensive identity protection with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. That's LifeLock.com, promo code NEWS for 30 days free. Terms apply.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Collie Power's got your back. Collie Power makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing, nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Collie Power's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcollypower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
Now, one of the interesting things in this case is, whatever good things were going on, whatever bad things that were going on, was that his son's birthday was the next day, and he was very close with him and very excited to see him. And, some people say there's no way if he could have been there for his son's birthday that he would have missed it. You think that's pretty accurate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's probably one of the most accurate things that we have. It didn't really matter who we spoke with. Everyone indicated that there's no way he would have missed this, that the sun rose and set on his son when it came to his perspective and how he valued that relationship. And we talked about this pretty extensively when it came to the theory of maybe he just drove away from his life. And my opinion, based on what we heard, is even if that were true, let's just say it's true for a second, there's no way he does it on this day.
Yeah, he had spent a good chunk of the Sunday before he went missing with his son. When your kid's birthday is on a Monday, you can't really do that much stuff. So you do it on the weekend. And that's exactly what they did until actually quit very late in the evening. He was spending time with his son, and I'm sure they were discussing him going to pick you up from school or whatever he was going to do the next day on his actual birthday. And so him going missing on his, so close to his son's birthday is just it just raises some really significant red flags for those who knew him.
And along those lines, had he ever gone missing or gone off the grid before?
So this is a great question. And we did ask his girlfriend at the time that he disappeared. And she tells us about a one-time event. I believe she said he was gone for maybe 3 days, maybe 4.
4 days.
And she was I mean, Michael and I talked about that afterwards, and I was like, I'd be mad too. And so once she finally managed to get a hold of him, she pretty much, said, this can't happen. You can't do this. This is, you can't do this to people. And so it had happened once before. And then his mom would report, he'd be gone for maybe 2 or 3 hours and then come back.
The time he went away for a few days, do you know where he went? Was he out of the area?
Yeah.
Was it Perry?
Yeah, he was in Perry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, which is 45 minutes?
About, yep.
Yeah. 45 minutes from where he was living at the time.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that the police weren't really updating his mom or giving her a lot of information. Do you and her feel that this case has been taken seriously by police?
I don't know how you want to answer it, Lisa.
I mean, I can only speak from what Teresa tells us, and we have formed a very strong bond with Teresa. We've known Teresa now for probably 3 or 4 months. Teresa and I have several late night text messages when something pops into her mind, and sadly, her one biological son disappears. Then her only other biological son passed away 6 months later. And then 2 months after that, her dad passed away. So she's really had a rough go, over this last year. And what she says to me and to us now is she just says, thank you. Thank you for elevating this case. The detective who's in charge now will interact with her over the phone. She sees him in person sometimes, and she actually feels like now she's at least getting some information from them, when what she reports to us before is there was even some confusion that we had on who he was even leading this case. We heard from the public information officer. He gave us a name of someone we should reach out to, and then it didn't even end up being that person. It was somebody else. So it even seemed from our perspective, and again, this is just our perspective, that there was even some confusion at the sheriff's office on who was leading this case. The first detective, she was great. And then I think she went on maternity leave or something like that. And then when this other detective took the case, I felt things just kind of fell. So maybe initially, Teresa did feel like there was some good communication, but that fell off until maybe just within the last month.
Yeah, I think it helped us. I mean, one of the things that we've talked to a lot of subject matter experts as we've built this podcast and how we want to approach cases. And one thing that's been very consistent is they said from our seat and what we're doing that the best thing we can do is apply constant pressure on law enforcement. So that's what we've been trying to do. And I think over the last couple of months, we're starting to see some results from that constant pressure. There's been a lot more communication on this case. There's been a lot more communication on our previous case, the Jody Kilgore case. And something even unique happened is these two families, because of Elisa here, frankly, I want her, she did a lot of work on this. She got these two families introduced, and now they are going to the sheriff's office as a united front for their unsolved cases. And so it's added a lot of pressure, and it's added a lot of, frankly, community. These people really depend on each other now because they have a shared tragedy.
Yeah, they do a vigil for Jody Kilgore on the day that he was killed, which is October 6th. And this time, Teresa, Ian's mom, was welcomed into that vigil. And so it was really an opportunity for both families to come together at the courthouse in Crawfordville and bring members of the community together to remind people that, we have an unsolved homicide, frankly, the only unsolved homicide, and someone who's missing, and we're not going to let anybody forget about it.
Yeah, I thought was really kind of, just emotional to listen to was, whenever we were talking to her about potentially going to that vigil, she was like, I'm not sure. I don't really know anybody. And we were explaining to her, I said, you don't understand my family. They're going to welcome you in open arms. You just need to show up. And I was so happy that she did.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to hear, because you can't have enough allies in this kind of situation.
That's right.
And I feel, maybe it was pressure from you doing a podcast that maybe reignited the efforts here. Do you sort of get that feeling too?
I certainly hope so. I mean, that was when we started the Jody Kilgore case, it really started out as personal to me and personal to my family and what I've seen. And frankly, I was just shocked that the case wasn't already solved. I mean, because the Jody Kilgore case all by itself is very strange. And the communities who reached out to us to take on more cases. Originally, we weren't thinking about having a long-term podcast. This was something just for the family, for the community, for that case. It wasn't until we started hearing feedback from the community about the work that we were doing and that they really appreciated it. And it went from appreciation to almost depending on it. And so that's when we kind of got more engaged. And of course, more people came to us. And so, yeah, I mean, I've seen more activity on these two cases since we started than before. And it has to be attributed at least somewhat to the pressure that we're applying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a good thing for you to know that you're making a difference. Take some pride in that and advocating for families that need it. There's one weird statement, at least I read it as weird. It just jumped out. That was from police, and it basically said FDLE missing persons alert. Specify that if you find him, meaning Ian, do not approach him. Contact law enforcement immediately. Almost makes it sound like he's dangerous. Anything that you know behind that statement?
Yeah, no one seems to really even know what that's about. That was in a news report that came out, I think maybe a couple of weeks or a month after he went missing. And his mom is like, I don't know what that's about. His girlfriend's like, I have no idea. None of the people close to him have any idea what that's even about. And they've never, Wakulla County Sheriff's Office has never said why that's in there.
Yeah, I mean, at this point,
it seems odd.
There's been no indication that he's even remotely dangerous, other than to maybe himself because of the drug use. But yeah, I mean, when I read that, I was like, are we talking, did we look up the right case? Because I feel like we would have heard something. And from what we can tell, there's absolutely zero aggressive about Ian Rogers.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to find out, is there a NamUs file that's been set up for you?
Yeah, so there's a NamUs, and also he has been added to the Charlie Project. That got put up maybe according to the Charlie Project, you have to be missing for at least a year. So I needed to let that year go by. So the day after it had been a year, I reached out to Megan, and she added him to the Charlie Project.
That day, didn't she?
Yeah, she added him that day. So there is a NamUs, and he is on the Charlie Project.
Yeah, and both sites are fantastic and good resources to help in these cases. And one thing I wanted to talk about here as we close was that thing that you did on your podcast. You had that discussion, sort of roundtable with listeners to get their input, their theories about what happened. I'm curious if you can share some of the theories listeners put forward, and then I'm going to put you on the spot. Based on all the work you did, what do you guys think happened?
I can talk about one of the things that I thought was really interesting in that, and it is an offshoot on what Michael was talking about, and it goes to state of mind. It's hard. You can't really determine someone's state of mind conclusively. And when you do, you sort of attribute it to your own background experience. And so this idea of him potentially leaving because there was a lot of positivity happening just was really kind of foreign to me until we had this listener roundtable, and someone said, she was very vulnerable enough to say that she comes from a background that didn't have a lot of positivity. She had a very difficult upbringing, and even now to this day as an adult, when things start going her way, she stops and pauses and she's like, wait, I am not good enough for this. And that was really eye-opening for us, because fortunately for me, I was not brought up in an upbringing where I would have ever felt not worthy of something. And my parents made me, led me to believe, and rightfully so, that I am worthy of the good things that come to me. And so when we had that conversation, that was just really powerful to me. And maybe because I had not about theories for me, I don't think that he on his own volition left. But when she started talking about that, I was like, wait, maybe it just got to be too much, So, I mean, that was the really most powerful moment for me from the roundtable, from what I can remember.
Agreed. And so for me, what I liked most from the roundtable is really collectively what came out of it. Every single person had their own take, and they recognized things that we hadn't considered, like even something as simple as, has anyone checked whether Ian had a different cell phone?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as soon as someone said that, I looked at Elise. I'm like, never even thought to ask that question. So we went back to Teresa and we tracked down. We went back to Teresa and Kaylee.
Yeah.
And we talked to them about alternate cell phones, alternate devices, computers. And in the process, didn't Teresa find
an iPad
mm-hmm. that was then turned into the police?
That's right. Yep.
So we have we don't know if it came out of anything because obviously not speaking to us, but we have a new piece of evidence that has been introduced and provided by law enforcement based on that roundtable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. That's the benefit of getting a group of people together to share their experiences, their ideas, and maybe come up with something that nobody's thought of before. And I'm always encouraged when I see that, and especially when it leads to something that,
right.
as you mentioned, may not turn out to be anything, but maybe it does.
Worth asking.
Yeah. So very fascinating.
There was one more, if I can add it. It was about
absolutely.
the salvage yard.
The salvage yard idea. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, I don't know. This whole thing of putting cars in water was completely foreign to me. I'm from Colorado, so I was like, people do that. And then someone at the round table said, well, did anybody check the salvage yards? Because we've got the tag, which means we've got the VIN and everything. So many different parts of a vehicle are now, stamped with the VIN. And we were like, oh. So there were several good ideas that we took to Teresa then that she went and encouraged to Wakulla County Sheriff's Office to either do it or to let her know if they had done it. Another idea was, did he have a history of long periods of time of being gone? That came out of the listener roundtable, right. Which of course now we were able to answer because we connected with the people who knew him the most. So that was really interesting, and it's crowdsourcing. These are the kinds of, like, even now you've said a couple of things where I was like, oh my gosh, talking about it for 4 months. Like, why was the cell phone number turned over to somebody else? I never had thought about that.
Yeah.
Like, both of us looked at each other and went,
well, Mike, I can tell you what, Mike, we're going to go find out.
Well, maybe it'll be enough to spark a new episode for you. And I mean, speaking of that, do you plan on doing more episodes or any update episodes?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm from Crawfordville, I consider these two cases kind of our anchor cases. And so we stay in close touch with the family, and any updates that happen, we'll definitely be putting an episode. And if it's not a full episode, we'll tack on an update to an upcoming episode of something else. And so we're going to make sure, we've even got episodes that talk about the birthdays and the vigils and things like that. And so I don't plan on letting these go until they're solved. So we might be talking about these for a long time, but you know what? I hope I'm not talking about
That's right.
it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's short-lived. The good news, like I said before, we've got some significant community involvement. We've got significant pressure on law enforcement. And so there's even up to and including WCTV in Tallahassee they're going to be putting together a true crime series, I think. And they've already said that they're going to start with the Ian Rogers case.
Wow, that's fantastic.
How much that there's even more pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to anyone out here listening to our show, where can they find your show? Where can they go back and check out all these great episodes you guys did?
So we have a website. That's probably the quickest way, www.tragedy@truecrimepodcast.com. We have a Facebook group that people can join, Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast. Those are probably the two main places. We're on all you can go straight to Spotify and just search that way, or straight to Apple Play and search that way as well.
I kind of made an appointment to put us on every podcasting platform I could find.
Uh-huh.
So we're on, I think, 20 of them.
Yeah.
So they should be able to find us on any major streaming platform.
Yeah. And if someone's having trouble, you can reach out to our email. It's tragedy@truecrimepodcast@gmail.com.
And can people also leave you tips and stuff there too if they know anything or think they know anything?
Yes, we actually have a tip line as well that we have established. This is not the one for the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office. This just comes to us. It's 850-296-8690.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, sharing all the information you've shared. It's a very interesting case. And I, really want to thank thank you both for coming on to help listeners understand the case a little bit better. And for anyone else listening here, definitely go over and check out the deep dive by Alyssa and Michael on their podcast, Tragedy. So thank you both very much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on. If you want to get early and ad-free access to new episodes of Missing Persons and help support the show in the process, please consider a subscription to our Apple Podcast. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll get early ad-free access to not only this show, but to every other show on the AbJack network of podcasts. You can get started with a free trial by searching for AbJack Entertainment in your Apple app, and we'll include a link in the show notes. If you want to find us on social media, we're on every major platform and on YouTube. Just search for Missing Persons Podcast. We'll include links to all of our social media in our show notes, and you can also visit our website, missingpersonspodcast.com. Finally, if you're in need of a platform to discuss a missing persons case that you're connected to, feel free to reach out to us on our website. We're happy to help. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.